let's get started so that we can get through everything today because we have a huge topic to get through. We are going to talk about metabolism and how muscle, protein, and GLP-1s work together, which is a massive topic that so many people are interested in right now as GLP-1 use starts to really get off the ground. We're having this conversation around how do I maintain muscle? How much protein should I eat? What kind of protein? So this is a really amazing way to kick off 2026. So just a reminder for everybody that's here, and yes, there will be a recording. I'm seeing that question in the chat already. If you're watching the recording, this is typically for our members only. So everybody was invited this time because we wanted to kick off 2026 right. But really, every month, our No More, Do More is for our members. So this is a huge perk where you get access to the experts. So most of the time, I've got an incredible guest to come and talk about their area of expertise. We have had people talk about sauna and red light and cryotherapy and GLP-1s and HBOT. And these are the real experts that are working in this space, whether they're doing the research or we had a really amazing professional athlete come and talk to us. So these are the people that are using the services to help them do what they do best. And we do this every month just for members. So this is an amazing way to make sure that we say thank you to our Restore community and for all of your support and enthusiasm for the work that we're doing. Now, I have to give you the legal phrasing. Remember, this is a webinar for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. I am Dr. Rachel, but I am PhD Dr. Rachel, not MD Dr. Rachel. So it's outside of my scope to be giving you medical advice in the first place. And that any suggestions or recommendations that are discussed are based on general principles and are probably not suitable for every individual. And so it's really important to consult with your healthcare professional. You can talk to the nurses in the studios before you make any changes to your healthcare regimen or lifestyle, which is pretty relevant to what we're going to be talking about today. All right, just a quick intro because most of you know me. I'm Dr. Rachel. I'm the Chief Science Officer here at Restore. I have been doing work in skeletal muscle for the last 20 years, looking at different supplementation strategies and metabolic health over the lifespan. So I really started looking at older adults, and then I worked backwards to start looking at human performance. And then my work really started to create this arc between how can we prevent the declines that happen with aging. And we're going to talk about the disease that I did most of my research on called sarcopenia toward the end of the lecture. But more important than me is my amazing guest, Lynne Ryan. She is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and the owner of the Restore Hyper Wellness in both Bozeman and Billings, Montana. And she is an outstanding practitioner. Lynne, I'm going to let you give yourself a little bit of a background, but I just have to say, as a scientist in this space, Lynne and I have spent hours geeking out about all of this information. She is just an incredible wealth of knowledge. So Lynne, give us a little background. Where have you come from and how did you find yourself at Restore?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on. This is an honor, slightly terrifying and very honoring. Yeah, I own the Restores in Montana. I come from a functional health background. I'm not a doctor, uh, but sort of piecemealed my education together after university to move into that functional space for very personal reasons, for my daughter's health and my own health that I couldn't kind of get answers for in the conventional medical community. And things just grew from there. I love nerdy things. I love understanding the whys and the hows. And for myself, have struggled with my weight. Was 237 pounds at one point. Lost all of that weight naturally, uh, and then kept it off for, oh gosh, a few decades. And then you throw COVID and menopause in there, and it's a whole new story that we're going to talk about today.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I am so thrilled to have you because of your knowledge, not only of the topic area that we're going to talk about, but also your personal experience and the fact that you know the Restore systems so well. And you have two incredible studios. So if you're ever in Bozeman or Billings, you need to get to Lynne's
Yeah.
studio. It's a good time to visit Montana. All right. So just a reminder is that I always have the chat open. So what we want, and the reason why this is so unique and special, is that for those of you that are here live, you have the ability to ask questions in real time. So unlike a podcast where you're listening and you're like, oh, I want to know more about that, please feel free to use the chat and I will answer questions and pitch them over to Lynne as they come through. But don't be shy. Make sure that you are getting full advantage of your No More, Do More tonight. All right, so what are we going to talk about? So the first thing that we're going to look at is weight loss. So thinking about using GLP-1s or not. As Lynne said, she lost a bunch of weight without GLP-1s before they were available for that indication. And specifically what happens to muscle during this time period, because there's a lot of headlines and hype around, should we be careful about muscle? What should we do? How do we preserve it? And then we're going to take a dive into protein, also very hot right now. And how much protein you should actually be getting, where should you be getting it from, how can you make sure that you have all of this? And then we're going to look at some different therapies that we have at Restore that if you are on a weight loss journey, either using one of our GLP-1 products or not, what can be paired with this journey so that you feel supported at every step. And like I said, making sure that you use that chat liberally is part of why the No More Do More is so great. All right. So we're going to start, Lynne, by talking about muscle and muscle loss. So are you hearing any chatter in either the studio or have you seen it around that people are really nervous about muscle and their GLP-1 or weight loss journey?
Honestly, in the studio, I don't hear much about people nervous about it, and that makes me nervous. I want I want this tool to be used successfully, and I want people to have sustainable weight loss. And the key behind that is going to be preserving muscle. It's one of the most critical therapies that we can have and use in conjunction with our with weight loss.
It's funny. I say this all the time. I'm a muscle researcher, so I'm biased, but I'm right. Muscle is the tissue of longevity. And so we need to make sure that we are protecting this organ because it's not just for moving around and for exercising, it is your metabolic sink. So when your metabolism is revving, it's because you have a lot of really robust muscular tissue. And when things start to go sideways, and you're not moving around and you're not protecting that tissue, this is where we see diseases like type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease, even diseases like cancer are being tracked back to the metabolic disorders that can happen with the loss of muscle.
I know we talk a lot about this metabolic sink, but I'm
Mhm.
going to ask you a question. Can you just explain that? Because I think we all talk about it and it's a sort of the muscles are used as a glucose disposal unit. But if you can, I don't think people understand that.
Yeah, it's such a good question. See, this is why I knew I needed you to be on this webinar. So when we think about muscle, this is going to be the tissue that uses the vast majority of fuels in your body. The other is brain. So your brain is also going to use a ton of energy. But when you have excess circulating glucose, so that's sugar or carbohydrates or fat, your muscle is going to suck that up and burn it if it's moving and it's strong so that it doesn't get deposited in your adipose tissue first. So those are your fat stores, or so that you don't get fat accumulation in places where it's not supposed to be. So, like in the little crevices between your muscle fibers themselves, or in your liver, or in your blood vessels, or you've probably heard the term visceral fat lately. And that's the fat that kind of accumulates around your internal organs. And so, if you don't suck that fuel out of your bloodstream using your muscles, that's where you're going to really find that the accumulate elsewhere. So, that's why we call it a sink because it's actually the place where the majority of that fuel is going to be properly used. Your brain is the other one, which is interesting. And your muscles like to use both sugar and fat. But interestingly, your brain only uses carbohydrates, a little bit of ketones, so a fat derivative. But this is why it's so important to make sure that you have the right nutrition strategy alongside of your weight loss journey as well. And the other thing that we see is that as you start to drop your calories, it's really challenging to maintain that skeletal muscle because you're depriving that really important tissue of the energy that it's used to. So, when you were on your weight loss journey, Lynn, and we're going to do a slide specifically for you, how did you work around the weight loss and the calorie deficit and then also maintaining your skeletal muscle?
Well, I lost like initially, like I said, a few decades ago, I lost a bunch of weight and then gained about 20 pounds of that back and then used the GLP-1 therapies that we have at Restore to get myself back down to where what I call my happy weight, my right size weight.
I call it your fighting weight.
My
Yeah.
fighting weight, my clothes all fit weight.
There you go.
Um, For me, I'm very blessed. I love exercise and I've had that habit built into my life for my whole life. So that was not a big issue for me. But my mindset when I was on the GLP-1s, and I hope I'm answering your question,
Mhm.
my mindset when I decided to go on the GLP-1s was not only not taking it like a magic pill, but as a control stick. Someone's handing me the control stick, this magic tool that's going to help me control my appetite, which means I have to do these three things on this side. I have to do my part on this exercise to make sure that I don't have side effects, that I don't lose muscle, and that I lose it sustainably so I can keep it off. So for me, that meant changing it up at the gym. Maybe, I went into the gym, I would go, I always kind of go 5 times a week, but really focusing 3 times a week on strength training, not getting excited about getting my heart rate up and doing some hit workouts, purely focused on old school strength training. And just did, you'll hear this term progressive overload
Yeah.
if you're out in the industry looking. And I'm like, I wish they would use a different word. It means if you don't know what it means and you're totally lost, then spend an hour with a trainer so you can understand. But to dumb it way down just means lift some weights for like 3 to 6 weeks and then go heavier and keep going heavier and heavier that you can without damaging your tendons and your ligaments and your form. That's what progressive overload is just don't
Yep.
go in there and lift the 2 pound weights.
Yep, absolutely. And
Hmm.
so, Lynn, you did it so right and so well because here's the other thing, and this is, we'll talk about this in just a second as well, is that what you're talking about is maintaining body composition, right? So, this idea of, yeah, the number on the scale might be going down, but if it's going down because you're losing fat and muscle, that's actually pretty problematic. Which is actually why we use the in bodies in our studios to make sure that body composition stays appropriate as we are starting to lose weight. And we can actually see that we're losing fat and not for muscles. And so when we are thinking about maintaining our muscle, you mentioned exercise, which is super important. But talk to me a little bit about your diet and about protein and how important that was.
Okay, so for if any of you guys that are listening that are on the GLP-1 program, you'll be able to relate to this totally. I did not realize how much my appetite was affected by the GLP-1s and how I would be in the studio working and I'd have breakfast and then all of a sudden it'd be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I hadn't even felt hunger. So I thought, okay, this is a problem because I'm not going to be able to get the protein that I need in my day if this continues. So it had to be a bit strategic. So I definitely doing things in the morning, spacing my protein out during the day, focusing on protein. And honestly, when you're doing this and you're not hungry, you have to focus on the most nutrient dense food that you can get in, which sounds crazy, but you have to focus on your protein and then you have to get some fiber and some micronutrients. So you have to get your vegetables in. So it's a little bit of a dance that takes it's worth the strategy. So I would really recommend everybody to try to eat 3 times a day if you're on these GLP-1s and maximize your protein at every meal. Start your meal with the protein and don't forget your water.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I love this key takeaway that we put at the bottom here is that this is GLP-1s users really need more of a strategy, right? So it has to be, as you experienced, my appetite is not controlling my drive to eat anymore. So making sure that you have the food prepared so that you're like, okay, it's lunchtime. I need to eat this food now because you're probably not driven to go toward it
Yeah.
otherwise.
And I think there's cheats that have to start coming in when you're on these GLP-1s to get these protein things. And maybe if you're not even on a GLP-1, but just to get your protein where it needs to be, like cheats like I would love to say that I could get all my protein from uh, whole food sources
Yeah.
like meat and fish and chicken. I would be lying to your face. I have had to use protein powder to get my protein macros where I need them.
Yep.
So I'm hoping we're going to talk about protein powder because that was something that I found very confusing doing the research between bone broth and paleo and collagen and whey protein. What do I do? So
Yeah.
definitely like cheats at breakfast, non-Greek, non-fat Greek yogurt with protein powder and berries, those kind of cheats, eggs and egg whites, just to get the protein up there.
Yep. We will talk. We're going to have a whole section about protein and where we should be getting it from. So we talked about muscle before we get into that component being so critically important, being your metabolic sink. And I think before we wrap up and move on to the actual protein section, it's really important to remember that your weight loss is also going to be lowering your resting metabolic rate. You simply have less tissue to supply, and if we can maintain your skeletal muscle for as long as we can, when you do reach your goal weight, which we're going to get you to at Restore, you now have a robust amount of muscle that can sustain that metabolic calorie burn where you've lost all this adipose tissue. But what we see in the literature is that people that have been on a weight loss journey and have maintained their skeletal muscle mass actually keep that weight off better because they have this very metabolically active tissue.
I read a study 4 times as 4 times as well. They
Yeah,
keep the
yeah.
weight off. That's a
It's very
huge factor.
significant. Very significant. All right. So, to wrap up this little section before we move on to the protein equation, is that it's really important as you're thinking about weight loss, whether you're using GLP-1s or not, to protect your muscle. So we're going to use strength training. You're going to talk to your trainer and find that progressive overload, which just means adding a little bit more volume or intensity as you go through. And you're going to really prioritize protein. So let's get into that because there's a lot of questions in the chat
I'm
about how much protein, where should I be getting it from, what counts, what doesn't. So let's take a deeper dive. Okay. So I think we have to start at the beginning, which the recommended dietary allowance or the recommendation, if you will, of protein is zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram per day of body weight. And Lynne, you're the only one that's going to understand that because Lynne is actually Canadian, so she speaks kilogram. For the rest of us, we never learned that. But we were having this conversation right before we started. This is like baseline survival level amounts of protein. This is not enough to build muscle for sure. This is kind of enough to keep you alive. So can you kind of do a little bit of the mental math for us and give us like what is the optimal range here from a kilograms and then translate it into pounds for us?
Well, no one speaks kilograms here. So, but what I would say is exactly what Rachel says. Like this RDA is not where we want to be. This is the minimum to keep you alive. And like Rachel said, we were talking before about how, it looks like there's some changes with the food pyramid and everything in this country. And we are seeing a propensity to focus on protein more. We are understanding more the benefits of it. And so the optimal range, and again, this varies depending on what you're doing and who you are.
Mhm.
Like I would say the optimal range of 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram, which is about zero point 0.5 to 0.73 grams per pound. That's okay for regular. That's fine. That's great. That's an optimal level for the regular person. But if we are, um, when we're losing weight, we're in a catabolic state. Anabolic is like building, catabolic is like losing. So if we're in a calorie deficit and we're losing weight, it's very, very important and has been proven that if we up the protein, we can minimize the protein loss. So we want to aim for, and it's a gram a pound of ideal body weight. That's a really, you can listen to all sorts of podcasts and you'll see detailed numbers and we'll know it's grams per lean body mass. Like, let's not worry about that unless you have, a fancy in body at home, then just you're going to be using your scale. So for the most part, just your weight and your ideal weight, what you think that might be, and then you're going to do a gram a pound. And if you do a gram a pound, even if you go, and some stats would say even over if you're older, some would say 1.2 to 1.2. And if you're a heavy lifter like a bodybuilder, they'll go over 2 grams per pound. According to the literature that I researched for this talk, there really is no upper limit that
No,
is been proven to have a negative consequence. So but I think for ease sake, if you can get a gram a pound in, which is hard of ideal body weight, if you can aim for that, you'll get close enough that you'll win, I
yeah,
think.
I
Mhm.
totally agree. And I think you're saying something that's really important too, is this is ideal body weight. So just for round numbers sake, let's say currently you are 200 pounds and you would like to be 150 or 175 pounds. That lower number is what you're looking for. And this goes into the questions that we're seeing a lot in the chat about where should I be getting protein from? You mentioned earlier that food first is always going to be the most important part, but if 150 grams of protein is what you're after, that's hard to do in any case. It's a lot of volume of food, and it's exceptionally difficult if you're on a GLP-1 and your appetite is suppressed. So what are some strategies that you use to get to these numbers?
Strategies I use, definitely spacing it out through multiple times during the day. Not stressing, like we've heard in the past, oh, my body doesn't absorb anything over 30 grams of protein. I think that's been proven in the literature to be false,
Completely. Yep.
completely false. So go for it. In fact, there's research up to 100 grams in a
That's right.
meal. So, don't be
Completely
scared of it.
changed the performance nutrition space when Luke Van
Yeah.
Loon put that paper out. Yep.
Don't be scared of it. Just eat your protein throughout the day. Like I said, I'd love to sit here and preach the holier than thou. All I did was eat whole foods. I don't know how you do that on a GLP-1 unless you are so good at batch cooking. But I'm not. I'm working full time and doing my thing. So I put in me in particular, and we can get into this, but I don't do very well with whey protein. So I have found a high-end paleo protein that is a complete protein. And we can get into that later. But cheats, like I said, the Greek yogurt and the protein powder, doubling it up, the eggs, making sure I'm getting enough meat. Like I have to have protein at lunch, a piece of meat at lunch, and a piece of meat at dinner. That's the strategy. And then having to have vegetables, like it's basically protein and vegetables, and then I'm full.
Yeah. And I think
Mhm.
you're making a really important point too. You said just a minute ago that fiber is also critically important when you're on a GLP-1 because you've got to keep your gut moving. And those two things together, fiber from your vegetables and protein from whatever source you're getting it from, are incredibly satiating. They make you feel really full. So spacing it out seems like a really good strategy.
Yeah, and actually to add to that fiber thing, I'm a real whole food advocate. However, I just believe, again, getting back to the strategy piece, Well, if while you're on a weight loss or GLP-1, I don't think that you can disagree, Rachel, if you want, but I don't really think there's a problem in using a fiber supplement, in between your meals. You don't want it to fill you up. You don't want it to take the space of your meal, but in between meals, you can just take a little fiber supplement to help you make sure you get your fiber up.
Yep, 100%. So I'm biased, but I'm a supplement researcher by trade. And so I'm a strong believer that you should use supplements appropriately when you've got a hole in your diet or a strategy like this where you need to make sure that you're getting the right amounts in. And just to call it out too, we don't have it on here, but people are asking is you want to get upwards of 25 grams of fiber in your diet throughout the day. And right now, it's kind of dire in the United States. On average, people get 3 grams and we're
Oh my
looking for
gosh.
25. Yeah, it's not good.
Really?
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Can I chat for a second just about
Yeah.
protein timing?
Yeah.
So interesting literature has come out on protein timing. And when you think about it, it makes sense. Like those of us that have been in the gym and that are in the gym are always saying, oh yeah, you got to eat your protein like right before or right after. You've got to do this. Well, that is not true,
True
apparently.
story. Yeah, you're
And
right.
when you think about it, it makes total sense because it's not like you eat a steak and you immediately digest it and you can use it to build muscle. That's not how it works. So peak proteins timing and peak protein or peak muscle synthesis is actually occurring about 24 hours after you work out.
Yep.
And we also have this amino acid pool in our bodies. So basically, my message to you is do not stress about this. You don't have to have this crazy nutrient timing that we used to think we had to in order to stimulate muscle growth. There is a big window that you can use as long as you get your daily protein amounts. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, Rachel, but
You
I have also read that making up for the protein, if you're not, you can't do.
Yeah. So you are absolutely right on both accounts. And it was really interesting when the research started to move in this direction. If you asked people, even the best researchers in the field 15, 20 years ago, is there this timing window of protein? They would have said yes. And it was based upon the data that we had at the time. And since then, the protein data has just really evolved. And as it turns out, you just kind of need some circulating amino acids around your training both before and after. And so if you eat protein throughout the day, that does the trick.
Yeah, that was eye-opening to me and a huge sigh of relief because I kept on thinking, oh my gosh, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm banging weights off at the gym and I'm not going to get the gains.
Yeah,
But I
totally.
was.
And you're bringing something up that I just think is so important is that there's a ton of information out there and it's really confusing. And most of the time, the more precise people get, the farther they get away really from the reality of what the data says. So I love your message is that don't stress too much about it. Just have a plan, have a strategy. So that way you feel like you're getting enough in, you feel supported, and also your brain isn't going in a direction where you're like, am I doing everything wrong? Because even
Yeah.
starting on a GLP-1 or a weight loss journey can be anxiety inducing. Like it's a lot to be thinking about over the time.
Yeah, it's a financial investment. It's a health investment. So, you want to make sure you do it right. Can
Mhm.
I be really unpopular for a minute?
Please. I
I
love a
just
hot
want to
take.
talk. I want to talk about tracking, and I know
Mm,
that a lot of people can't stand tracking, and that
yeah.
is the blessing of the GLP-1, where maybe you don't have an appetite, so you don't have to necessarily count your calories to keep you under. But
Mhm.
I think in this window of this GLP-1 therapy, I think it's an important time to do some experimenting. And I believe in tracking. I believe in what gets tracked gets looked at and moves the needle. So even for an experiment to understand, okay, what does 25 grams of protein look like?
Yeah.
What does 50 grams of protein look like? What does 25 grams of fiber look like? What am I actually eating that's allowing me to lose my whatever it is weight per week? Like we have on the InBody, which is why I love it too, we can see what calories we are using at rest. And so that can be a great baseline. And then you can add a little bit onto that if you're exercising. But to just track, I'm not saying you have to track for the rest of your life, but if you could just do a little bit of tracking to understand how your body responds so that when you do eventually come off these GLP-1s or titrate down or however you're going to do this long term, that you have some data that you can really use and you also are understanding what those calorie amounts look like in front of you so you don't have to track long term. That's what I.
I am going to fully endorse your hot take, Lynn. I find it when I work with people, I do some nutrition consulting and I've been doing that for years and years. And especially with protein, people will be like, I thought I was getting enough. I had no idea. Or with fiber is another really good example is they're like, I don't even know where I get my fiber from. Like, where is fiber? Where does it come from? Plants, by the way. But people really just, we're so conditioned to think like, oh, carbs are bad, protein's hot, the whole thing that like, first of all, our brain is in a pretzel, but second, we don't even know really what is making up our food. I love trackers. Which
Yeah,
one,
me
not that we're
too.
endorsing, but which one do you like? Do you have one that you prefer?
Well, I'm a tracking fiend. Like I could be real unpopular here. I use my Fitness Pal and then
Mhm.
I have a tracker that I made years ago that I was gonna actually chat GPT to make it all pretty for me and I was gonna show it to you, but I actually, ooh, you guys are gonna be mad at me. I actually weigh myself and ask my clients to weigh themselves every day. Hang on. I don't care what that number is because we're going to average it at the end of the week and we're going to use that number to track your weight. Because as women, you guys all know, well, men too, but women especially, their weight fluctuates so much. If you're only weighing yourself once a week, you could have had sushi last night and the salt, the natural salt in the seaweed could put you over, and that can be really disheartening. Whereas if you do track your averages, it smooths everything out, is what I
Mhm.
like. So take it or leave it.
I take it. I mean, it's why when we built the GLP-1 program, we were so adamant about that in body and then watching the in body over time. So averages over time, because the in body is going to be slightly, as you mentioned with the sushi, it's going to be slightly affected by your hydration status, or did you, eat some salt, or did you eat a little bit of extra carbs, which is going to hold on to some water. So it will fluctuate and bump around a little bit, but what you're looking for is trends over time. One of the trackers that I love to use is actually called Chronometer. And the
Oh,
reason why I really like it is because it breaks down all of the macronutrients. And for protein, it breaks down into the amino acids themselves, which is the
ooh.
next question that I wanted to ask you is you mentioned that it was really important for you to get meat, which is a high quality protein, but you can do this on a vegetarian diet. It's challenging, but you can. So, can you talk a little bit about what is a high quality protein and what you mean by
Well, I could go down a lot of rabbit holes on this one.
that?
First of all, there has been literature for you vegetarians out there that everything equated, you can do this on your vegetarian stuff. So don't stress about it. You will be missing out on some very important micronutrients that you can get in your drips at Restore. And you'll have to probably do some work with, methionine and things like that. But you can do it on a vegetarian diet. I am a full-on meataholic. So
You
for
are in
me,
Montana. That
yeah,
tracks.
I am in Montana, and before that, I was from Alberta. Um, Good quality meat, it goes with anything. Like if it has an ingredient list, maybe just try to get the straight meat and keep it simple. Protein sources like fish, salmon, seafood, other fish sources, chicken, steak, like those. You could go down the carnivore rabbit hole if you want, or you want to eat nose to tail. No one's doing that. No one
And you want
really
to get your
wants.
fiber. Don't forget, you need your fiber.
Yeah, no one really wants to do that. Plus, you're not getting your fiber. But I think the mistake that I see people, and they think, and you know what, they think they're doing it right, but they're coming in with like ensures and these protein 30s stuff. And you look at whatever, I don't even know what it is, pure protein, I don't know what they are, but you see, and let me preface this by saying there are really good ones coming out on the market right now because people are understanding this, clean ones. But there's a lot of crap out there. And it's pretty darn easy to make a smoothie with real ingredients that doesn't have a big long list of stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I
And
would say.
the great thing about making a smoothie too is you can get both your protein and the fiber in at the same time. And so one thing we've got questions in the chat of like, where should we be getting our protein from if we want to source it from a supplement? So if you kind of
Mm,
like rank the protein sources, what you want is to get as many what we call essential amino acids as you can in one bite. And so if you look at meat, you're going to get all of those 9 essential amino acids out of 20 in one bite, which is why we call it a high quality protein. And then for vegetarians, you got to eat a couple of different things to get those same 9. And so you're just going to mix and match a little bit more. When you're looking
yeah.
for protein supplements, and if we were to sort of rank order them, the one that has the most data that is the highest quality from an essential amino acid protein standpoint is whey. But the problem is, as you just mentioned, some people can get really gurgly or bloated with the whey. And so that can be problematic. So there are others that you can choose from. It could be a casein, it could be pea protein if you're not a meat eater. There are others. The one thing that I will caution, and you probably saw this headline, Lynn, is a couple of months ago, there was a sting operation where they were testing all these different proteins and they found that there was a lot of lead in some of them. And the reason for that, and most of them were in plant protein sources, is
Mm-hmm.
because there is naturally occurring lead in plants. Like it's not nefarious. Like nobody's putting lead in plants. It's not coming from any sort of bad place. It just exists in the soil. And so when you concentrate all of those plants at a very, very high concentration, you can also concentrate the things that you don't want to be in there, which wouldn't be in an animal source. So do make sure, and I'm seeing some questions, how do you know it's safe? Do make sure that your protein is, I love your recommendation, like few ingredients, right? So you want just the protein if you can get it. And then also that it's third party tested. And so
Right.
making sure that you see that that testing certificate is going to be really important because that is really where that information is going to lie.
Yeah. Let's go back to the Whole Foods for a second.
Yeah.
So the other thing about, again, Tom, of my meat point of view, is that you're not just getting the protein, you're also, well, I guess that you're still getting the amino acids, also like carnitine and taurine and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
methionine. Like you get these
Creatine.
beautiful, yeah, these beautiful set of amino acids that, are also just great for your brain and
Mm-hmm.
help the metabolism, fat and carb metabolism as well. So I like that.
Yeah.
Do we
And
want
then
to
the
go?
bonus on the other side, I will just offer it because people are asking about it too, is that if you are a vegetarian, you're getting all of the fiber that the meat eaters
True.
alone might not. So it's,
Yeah.
it's got everybody's got a little bit of a bonus. But I do
Yeah.
have a question, and I want to move on so that we can get to some of the other stuff that we're going to talk about is um, fiber supplements. People are asking about that. The one that I love best is a psyllium husk supplement, but it's a soluble fiber. It's really gentle on the stomach. It creates that nice thick paste. It's going to be really helpful and protective. But do you have ones that you love?
I have been researching fiber, and apparently everybody is very individual as to
Mhm.
the fiber that works for them.
That is
So
correct.
I would say if you don't like the fiber that you've tried, try a different kind. Like there's beta glucans,
Yep.
there's the psyllium husk, there's prebiotic fibers like
Yep.
citrus pectin. Again, I can go down the rabbit holes and I always tell my team this, no one cares what kind of plane we're on when we go to Maui. They just want to know what the beach is like. So I don't think it's too big a deal with the fiber supplements. Just get one that you find is tasty and that you're going to use.
Yep.
I'm right now, I've got psyllium husk in the cupboard and I'm using a prebiotic one right now.
Yep. I
And
have
a
a
prebiotic just
colleague.
feeds my microbiome in my
Mhm.
gut. That's what
Exactly right.
prebiotic means. Hmm.
I have a colleague here at Stanford who loves green banana powder as their fiber. And I was like, I had never even thought about it. And he's like, it's terrific. It's a prebiotic, it's got all these wonderful things. So, yes. And you're so right that the fiber is super individualistic.
Yeah,
All
so don't
right.
get hung up about it. Just maybe take a little bit and just add a little bit to it and just drink your water because you could get clogged up.
Indeed. All right. So, wrap up here is that muscle is super important. We want to support it with strength training and with protein. And the reason for this is because, as we started out, muscle is the tissue of longevity. So hopefully we've spent 40 minutes now talking about how critically important muscle is and how to support it. We've got the message across that this is the muscle, this is the tissue that we want to be protecting. All right. So we've kind of skirted around a little bit this, but I want to dig in for a couple of slides here on how things can fall short. And so with protein and GLP-1 users, one of the things that is really problematic, as we talked about, is that the GLP-1 is going to reduce your appetite, and protein in and of itself can be satiating. It makes you feel full. So the strategy that you recommend, it sounds like, is small pulses of protein throughout the day and get it in the way that makes sense for you. So it could be meat, it could be if you're a vegetarian, but also don't be afraid of these supplements. Does that sound like
I
it's
think you have to use,
summarizing?
I don't know, I think you have to use a little bit of supplementation here just to, if you really want to focus on getting those macros done.
Yep, totally agree. And so when we look at the GLP-1s, they're suppressing appetite by actually mimicking a molecule that your GI tract secretes whenever you eat anyways. It goes up to your brain and it makes you feel full. And so when you start adding these other nutrients like fiber and protein on top of it, it's kind of like this triple whammy now. So we do need to be really thoughtful and careful, because when your appetite drops, your nutrients can drop, and that is where we start to see deficits. So you
Mhm.
mentioned just a moment ago about other nutrients that could potentially be problematic, and you said, come in and get your drip. This is why it's so important. What are some of the other micronutrients that you see that potentially start to dip when people have a lowered appetite and they're not consuming as much food?
Oh, gosh, I think it's going to be all across the board. I'd love to just pick one, but I don't think so. I think, I mean, obviously, I'm a B vitamin
Me
fan.
too. Yeah,
I'm a
me
real
too.
B vitamin fan. Plus, these B vitamins are instrumental in making your metabolism work. And
Yep.
so think about it this way. If you need A and B to make C, and you don't have B, you're not making any C. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to lose weight and you need, this molecule, you need this enzyme to do this to get to the weight loss, to burn the fat, and you don't have it, it's not going to happen. So we have to optimize our micronutrients, especially when we're doing this. This is such an important time to be having regular drips and maybe doing some supplementation at home as well. Um, your ALA in the studio. ALA is really poorly absorbed at home. That's alpha lipoic acid. It's really great for metabolism, blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, but it's really, really poorly bioavailable. Get it done in your drips. Carnitine can help that. We get that in our red meat, but as well, it's great. Gosh, I could never pick one. I am a huge fan of our micronutrients,
Me too.
of the lipo. Oh my gosh, it's so important. Like but B vitamins, I think, are the big B vitamins and our minerals, magnesium and all
Yeah.
the minerals.
I totally agree. All right.
Hmm.
So now I want to talk for a few minutes about your journey. And I know you've been alluding to this a little bit, but how did you actually come back to the GLP-1? How, like, what was your weight loss strategy? How did you use we've got the InBody here. Tell us a little bit about your strategy and how it worked.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm going to tell you that I was doing everything right before. In my mind. I was exercising, I was tracking, I was eating whole foods. I would lose, and I'm preaching to the choir, everybody on here, I'm sure. I'd lose 3 pounds, gain two, lose 3 pounds, gain four. I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot win this game. And when GLP-1s first came out, I was not a fan. I was the purist, like, absolutely not. And then as the research started coming in on the other benefits of these and the GLP-1 receptors throughout the body and how we were seeing that these could be properly done, I decided, okay, I'm coming into this with really good metabolic health. Everybody's going to come in at a different stage of metabolic health or dysfunction, and we have to respect that. So I came in pretty healthy. So I was okay. And I had it in my brain that I was going to stay on the low dose GLP-1. If you're coming in and your metabolic health is not great, you have diabetes or prediabetes, then that might not be the same with you. You may have to titrate up higher. And I think we all just need to respect where everybody's coming in. My goal was to minimize side effects. So I wanted to stay on the lowest minimum effective dose for me. My goal was to lose slowly because I did not want to regain. So I was about zero point 0.6 to 1 pounds a week, which was agonizing, by the way, absolutely
Mhm.
agonizing. Um,
You're flexing that patience muscle, which might be the
oh,
most important one.
oh my gosh. Like at least I had my tracker and my little graph I would do every week so I could see that I was like on the downward projection. But the research says that, if you can keep your weight loss per week under 1.5% of your body weight, you can pretty much attenuate any of the side effects for the most part. So that was a goal for me. Um, the neat thing for me, I started in July, and I had to take a break just around in December because I was having surgery. So from that to that, with my weight, I was shocked. I only lost zero point 0.8 pounds of muscle. Like, was absolutely shocked. Like I was expecting that I would have lost a lot more because I was not insane in the gym, but it
Mhm.
was amazing. I wrote my biomarkers down too. My fasting blood sugar went from, see, I came in healthy. It went from 90 to 85. Okay. My HA1C stayed the same. My cholesterol, okay, don't judge me. I have really, really high cholesterol genetically, but my cholesterol went from 281 to 248. My visceral fat went on our in-body from 11 till 6. And I have, then yeah, and then I didn't lose any muscle, almost none.
So
So
you are doing something that I just think is so great is like you had all of these markers ready to go for yourself where you were tracking them and you were like, I know that this is where I'm starting. And then this is like you said, over time, it was agonizing just seeing that zero point 0.6 or 1, but over time, you start to see that trajectory. And that seems like it was showing up as well in
yeah,
your
it's
biomarker.
very, very interesting. We have so many questions, don't
I
we?
know. So I want to zip through a little bit because one of the things that I think you're calling out that is really important and really different and unique about the Restore GLP-1 program is our support network. And people were asking about this in the chat is I think we should start a support network for people that are on GLP-1s. It's there, it exists. The nurse practitioners are there and they talk to you every single week to make sure your dose is correct and the way that you want it to be, which Lynne, you were like, this is the way that I want to handle it, symptom management, minimal effective dose. Other people are like, I got a lot of weight to lose. I really want to make sure that I'm, doing this well and doing this right. So you've got the nurse practitioners. You also have the nurses in the studio that you can come and talk to. And you have people like Lynne who are experts that are all going to be behind the desk, rooting you on and also experiencing this alongside of you. So I really love this. Um, and next, this comes to biomarkers. And so I want to just talk about our Restore Labs study. So this is a study that we did of
Yeah.
our participants in the GLP-1s. And what we found over 3 months' time is this is in semaglutide. We found that we had about 9 pounds average weight loss, so kind of following your trajectory exactly. We saw a little bit of fat loss, a tiny bit of skeletal muscle loss, but when we did the calculation of body composition, what we found was that the um, total body composition was improved. And this is the other thing about coming into Restore that's so awesome is you get to use our in-body machines. So you can track the way that you were tracking, Lynne. You're getting picked on a little bit in the chat.
I know I am. I'll answer that
Yikes,
after.
cholesterol. Go for it. Somebody says, if you're not seeing the chat, somebody says, that's some high cholesterol laying down plaque at an early age.
It is well, we don't know if it's laying down plaque.
That's
We
true.
don't know if it's laying down plaque. We don't. Cholesterol, well, that's a whole other show, is
Yeah, that's a whole other
cholesterol.
show.
Mind, so I'll just say this. Yeah, my cholesterol is genetically high. It's really genetically high, and it gets to freak out doctors, and they all want to put me on a statin, and it's not happening, because every other marker is fine. I share
Mhm.
like I said, my HA1C is 5.2, my glucose is 85, I have my triglycerides are pristine. Every other biomarker is fine. So am I watching it? Yes,
Mhm.
but I'm not
And
too stressed.
I think that's
Mhm.
so important. And, again, this comes back to this idea of this is your journey, right? This is your body and your journey. And that's one of the things that I really love about all of these programs that we put together at Restore is that you get to have these conversations with these practitioners. And it's not just like, oh, it's 2 minutes, like you would go see at your doctor, and they're like, here's your prescription, see you in 6 months. Like, we are really here for you, and we're really excited to be a part of your journey.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at a couple of other things as we wrap up here that can also be used in the studio if you are on a GLP-1 in this vein of support. So obviously lifestyle and strength training, super important. And you called it out right at the beginning, which I really loved, is you said, I knew I had this tool that I was using, the GLP-1, but I also needed to do my part. And I think that's part of it that's so critically important is that, yes, the tool is going to help you lose the weight, but what you want at the end of the day is to be a healthier person. And all of these other things are really important as well. So the GLP-1s are in our catalog, and you can talk to our nurses and our nurse practitioners about them. Um, and we have a variety of dosing schedules, and you can work with your nurse to do something like Lynne, minimal viable, effective dose, or you can go all the way out and titrate up and say, I've got a lot of weight to lose. Let's figure this out and let's do it together, which makes, again, coming to the studio super important. All right. Couple of products that you called out that I just think are great. So ALA, you love. Say why.
Oh my gosh, well, it's great for your brain. It supports insulin sensitivity. It is, I mean, there's more and more research coming out about lipoic acid all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just an easy one. It, it's when you read about micronutrients, they all have such there's never a micronutrient that just does one thing. So it's really hard, I find, to talk about micronutrients because they
Yeah.
all have like 50 to 500 jobs that are awesome. So you feel it's like when you go into a store and you're like, well, this lowers inflammation, and this lowers inflammation, and this lowers inflammation. This helps your mitochondria, that helps your mitochondria.
Yep.
It's like ALA does a lot of things, but it goes hand in hand with what we're doing with the GLP-1s. And
Yeah.
if you decide not to go on the GLP-1 pathway, and you want to drop some weight or even just help your blood sugar and your cravings, then ALA is going to be your friend.
Yeah. And then talk to me a little bit where this isn't so much about NAD. We've done a bunch of no more, do mores about NAD, but NAD is really going to support energy, which can
Yeah.
wane as you are in a calorie deficit. So talk a little bit about our NAD and our NR products.
Yeah. Protein, weightlifting, NAD, GLP-1. Perfect
Yeah.
combo. I love NAD. I can go down so many rabbit holes with NAD. I love NAD. Yeah, it's going to support your mitochondrial energy. So you're going to be in a calorie deficit. Your basal metabolic rate is going to drop down. You are going to be feeling a little bit sluggish. And so NAD can help with your energy. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting here that we didn't even talk about that I really wanted to talk about was this really powerful amino acid that's critical for muscle building called leucine. And it's a branched chain amino acid, but it's very much inhibited by inflammation. We need it. It's not a little bit. Leucine is an on or off switch. You take 1 gram, it does nothing. You take 5 gram, you're in the money. Get enough leucine. But leucine is inhibited by inflammation. So that's where NAD I find is really, really instrumental, a great combination because NAD is so good at lowering systemic inflammation. And so, in an indirect way, really supporting muscle synthesis. So, in that note, glucose regulation, increasing metabolic rate. So, yeah, it helps account. It aligns well with protein first strategies. Yes. That's the
100%.
high level way of saying all that I just said.
So we will have other no more, do mores and have some comparing NAD to NR. So in 20 seconds or less, which do you prefer, the NAD or the NR?
I do NR. I switched to NR for time factors for me and for side effects. It's a much easier drip to do. I'll just throw down, and people hear me tell this in the studio all the time. They're both amazing. Honestly, the only reason you would probably choose NAD over NR is financial, and that is a totally valid reason to do NAD. Some people don't have a big reaction to the drip. Hey, save your money, do NAD. And NR is there's going to be more in the cell, there's going to be less waste, so you're going to get more bang for your buck, and it's an easier, faster drip if you're a busy person like
Yeah,
myself.
agreed. All right, then we've got some of our other therapies. Can you talk a little bit about how we can use some of our core therapies, cryo, red light, infrared sauna? Were you using that on your journey and how did you feel like it was helpful? And what do you think they can do for somebody that is either using a GLP-1 or trying to lose some weight?
Yeah. Okay. Full transparency. I don't really do compression that much because I'm in the studio and I'm on my feet running around. But I do red light a ton. In fact, I'm in my house right now and I have a red light here, the same one in the studio. I'm spoiled because I'm an owner. Um, but no, I'm a huge fan of red light. It's massive for muscle recovery as well as just sort of modulating cortisol and melatonin. So again, it has this whole inflammatory or anti-inflammatory effect. It can help with sleep. This is a wonderful, easy therapy that if you're not doing yet, you need to jump on board.
Mhm.
Cryotherapy, of course, this is a metabolic booster as well as a resilience booster. The electric cryos and the cryos we have for women, these are much better sources of cryotherapy. Men can do the plunges, they can do that. It's been proven that women do not respond the same. We are not little men. Our electric and nitro cryos are much more beneficial, in my opinion, to elicit a beneficial cold therapy response. So jump in the cryo red light sandwich, it's the bomb.
I love the cryo.
NAD we talked about, and sauna. Sauna's amazing on many fronts. That's how I totally got into Restore because
Mhm.
I just was testing out a sauna detox, nitric oxide, so cardiovascular health, heat shock protein, so mitochondrial health, circulation, boosting your metabolism. Sauna has so many benefits. I love these all. These are all my favorites.
And you can do all of these, which I really like. You can come into the studio and just kind of like make a rotation of your drips, your,
Yeah.
infrared sauna, your red light, your cryo. All right,
Yeah.
so we've got a lot of questions. So I'm going to rapid fire them at you. Are you
Okay,
ready?
let's do it.
Okay. You mentioned low dose, starting with low dose. Is it best to start on the low dose and stay there or progress when you're talking about side effects?
It's always best to start on the low dose. I'm going to blast through these answers too. So if you don't get these answers done, you can call the studio and I'll see if I
Yeah.
can answer them tomorrow. Always start on low dose. Peak GLP-1 doesn't, it takes about 4 to 5 weeks to get to peak level. So give yourself some time. Just take that weekly thing, use it as a tool, sort of get on how are you feeling. And then, like I said, everybody has a different amount of weight to lose. Everybody's doing it for different reasons, and everybody's coming in with a different stage of metabolic function or dysfunction. So cut yourself some slack on that and do what you need to get to the minimal effective dose. So yes, most people will titrate up. I think, Rachel, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most people land sort of a middle dose.
Mhm.
I think it's like 6 to 8 milligrams of tirzepatide usually is what people are sort of moving to now. But yeah, stay on the lowest dose you can. Give yourself some time there. Use the tools. And then, of course, if you're microdosing for other reasons, either for maintenance or just for biomarkers, just to improve your biomarkers, then of course you're going to stay on a very low dose.
Yeah. And you also just mentioned something that I think is really important is once you reach your goal weight, you're probably going to want to start to titrate back down
Yes.
either into a microdose. And that's the other really important reason why we want to have a relationship with the nurse practitioner because they can work you through that. All right.
Right. Do you want me to
Next
answer
one.
this? Okay, go.
Next one goes kind of related, and it's about the start of the journey, is the in-body machine. Can you describe how we use that and how to sort of interpret it without getting into too much detail, but why
Sure.
is this such an important part of the process?
Again, I'm a huge tracker, so I want to know where I'm starting. I also want to have some validation that what I'm doing is actually working. So when you're going to do your in-body, the best, I'm just going to throw down here, go fasted, have your bowel movement, do all the things, and then go to the studio and jump on the in-body. They'll walk you through it, and they should be able to walk you through how to interpret that. But the key things that I like from that right off the bat that I'm worried right when I'm starting is what's my BMR? What is my basal metabolic rate? What is that caloric intake that I need? And that's going to be kind of the guide to make sure that I am not losing too quickly. Because when I lose too quickly is when I'm going to see things like hair loss and Ozempic face and any side effects as well as muscle loss.
Exactly. Okay, then the next one again stays right here is blood biomarkers. You mentioned that you tracked yours in the very beginning, and we also have it as an option to track with our GLP-1s. Talk a little bit about how you might want to do that in the very beginning, because the other thing that you talked about was potentially using a GLP-1 independent of weight loss to
Yeah.
help control these markers. So, how important is it to be getting these biomarkers?
Well, we're learning more and more about GLP-1s and the different areas that they can affect mental health, cognition. We're learning a whole bunch about these. Who knew that, they would affect things like cholesterol? Like, who would even know that?
Mhm.
So, it, again, it's really nice to be able to know where you are and how you're moving through. And I'm not saying you need to run your biomarkers every month. You don't,
Probably
but
every three at minimum. I mean, because some
yeah.
markers aren't going to change that quickly anyway.
No.
So, yeah.
No, in fact, I did mine 3 times and when the middle and the last time were there wasn't that much difference because I had already dropped a significant amount of weight. So again, I like knowing what my cholesterol is doing. I want to know what my blood sugars are doing. Interesting things, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but things like if you're losing weight, it can change other things. Like it can change a dosage of a medication that you might need to be on. You might need to download or downgrade or get off of a medication. So you need to track those markers to understand what's going on. I saw something in there about thyroid. You might need to decrease your thyroid meds if you're dropping weight. So you've got to track that somehow. So, either go through your doctor. We offer discounted biomarkers in the studio that are just great.
Yep.
Like, get them done with us. They're cheap. And
And
then,
you have
yeah, and then
somebody to
you've
like
got,
sit with and talk them over with when you meet with your
yeah, yeah,
practitioner.
totally. You've got your time with the nurses, you've got your time with the NP. If you're running our different biomarkers, like our methyl detox, our genetic test, or our micronutrient assay, you actually get time with the lab themselves to go over those markers with you and how to strategize, not in just in the studio, but outside as well.
Yep. Couple of questions about something that you brought up. You brought up that you can have hair loss if you are on weight loss and you're moving too quickly. What do you do about that?
Well, okay, I don't really, please tell me if I'm wrong, Rachel. I don't really think that hair loss is a GLP-1 side effect.
Okay.
It's actually a side effect of rapid weight loss. So if you're having hair loss, I would do some math and see what rate you're losing weight at. And if you're losing weight too quickly, more than that 1.5% a week. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just throwing out there. I would think that what I would do is either try to eat more food. I'd do some tracking and make sure I'm increasing my calories so I can slow my weight loss down. Or perhaps that is an opportunity to titrate down on your dose.
Yeah. It's also a pretty good indicator of micronutrient deficiencies,
That's
particularly the
true.
B vitamins. So
That's
that's
very true. Yes.
also a good reason to track. And a couple of people asked again, what are the trackers that they use? So you use MyFitnessPal. I use one called Chronometer. And both of those are going to tell you, are you deficient in your intake of those nutrients? Because if you're deficient in your intake, then your body is going to be really feeling it. Um, One question that I'll just address just because I'm working on this with our R&D team is somebody says, I hate needles. Are there pill forms that are available? And the answer is yes, there actually is a new pill that was just released the other day. It's a semaglutide pill. And our medical team and our R&D team is trying to figure out if we can bring that into the system for an option that people want to use, because this is an injectable medication. You do have to administer it with a needle sub-Q. So yes, we are
Let me
looking
talk,
at that. We
let me
don't
talk
have it
about the
yet.
needle though. The
Yeah, go
needle
ahead.
is so tiny. I
So tiny.
hate needles too. My studio, the people in my studio will laugh because I run this thing and I don't like needles. I can't stand them. This needle is so tiny. Like I want to throw out there, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Like there, it's just the teeny weeniest little needle and the teeniest little thing. And yeah, honestly, and here's the benefit of having Restore. You don't have to do it yourself.
Mhm.
We have so many clients that we just keep their stuff in the fridge and they just come every week and they pop into the nurse room and have a little chat with the nurse, and the nurse gives it and you don't even feel it, and then they're on
Yep.
their way. So you don't even have to do it yourself. And that's the one thing that I love about Restore. I love that we're trying so hard to do this process right and wrap our arms around you guys.
Yeah. It is one thing that I'm really proud of with this whole model is you can get these GLP-1s on the internet. You can get a telehealth and it gets mailed to your door, and you got to figure out how to mix it up, and you got to figure out how to inject it yourself. And if you're feeling side effects, there's nobody to call. You're going to get an AI chatbot. And that's one of the things that I love and am so proud of our system is that everybody that you come in and talk to cares, and they're going to spend
Mm.
time with you. I mean, if you come in and you get a drip, you have 1 hour at least of that nurse's time, and you can just chew their ear off, asking questions. And they love it. Our studio nurses are incredible. They love to have conversations and to give you information. So it's a huge bonus of coming to do your therapies at Restore. Um, and then the last question that I'll wrap up on here is if you're taking a GLP-1 that's been prescribed somewhere else, can you still come to Restore and do all these therapies and talk to the nurses and have all this support system, even though you might be getting your GLP-1 elsewhere?
Of course you can.
Yeah.
Of course you can. I mean, you could be getting your GLP-1s from your doctor. That's fine. Come and do these supportive therapies. They are all science-backed. Like they work. They really work. There are those of us that are in the studios every day, and if there's any people in on this chat or in this webinar tonight that they will attest to this. We see stuff every day that is life-changing in the studio, from simple therapies like doing red light, doing sauna, doing cryo, doing their drips. I can see people change in an hour.
Mhm.
They're like two different people coming in the studio. We see it all day, every day. These therapies are really powerful when you utilize them. Um, and and yeah, please, you can ask all your questions about the GLP-1s when you come in. I mean, of course you can.
Yeah.
Of course you can. And the other thing that we do offer is you can book an appointment with an NP to talk to them.
Yeah. Just if you just want to have a consult and just say, hey, I've got this thing going on. I just want to like talk to an NP and get their opinion. That is something you can always do, regardless of whether or not you're taking a GLP-1.
We have two ways to do it. You can either come in for a casual consult, we'll book it on the schedule and we'll block it off and the nurse can sit with you. Or if you want to actually sit with an NP, we can also book that for you too.
I love it. And we're ending here with Shannon's amazing testimonial, which feels like exactly the way to wrap up here. Is she said, I've been getting drips and red light from Restore over the last year, including facials. And without reading the entire thing, says, I got my new license photo last week. I look so much younger and better than my pic from 4 years ago. She said, I have to bring it into the studio. I'm going to be 50 this year, and I'm so proud to be a part of the Restore family and loving my results. Shannon, thank you so much for sharing that. That seems like a perfect way to wrap things up here at the end. Anything else, Lynne, that you want everybody to know about GLP-1s, about weight loss, about protein, about strength training that they should know before they come into the studio?
Yeah, you can do it. You can do this. This is a tool that is a very powerful tool, and you can do it. If you can envision it, you can do it. And we're here for you.
Amazing. All right. So if you want more information about our GLP-1 plans, about the support systems that we have in place for you, you're going to want to scan this QR code. You'll get all the information that you need to get started. And then we'll get you into a studio so that you can start talking to a real person, a nurse, a wellness rep, a nurse practitioner to make sure that you're getting everything that you need. And then I just want to introduce next month's spicy topic. So next month, our No More Do More is going to be on libido because it's February. And of course, we have to do something around Valentine's Day. So we're going to look at brain chemistry, at energy, and at hormones. And we're going to think about libido. And I'm sure, Lynne, you'll love this, kind of like a vital sign as we explore what sexual health actually means. It's probably going to be something that a lot of people are talking about in the moving into the future. Is we kind of used to think of it as kind of like a nice to have. As it turns out, it's a really critical part of who we are. And how can we support that element? We have thoughts here. And I will have an exceptional guest for you next month that we will reveal shortly.
Hey,
And
and
then,
this particular webinar was open to everybody. So if
mhm,
you know someone in your life that you think would benefit from some of this information, you can share it with them, right? Can we
yep,
share the
absolutely.
recording?
100%. So
Okay,
everybody
cool.
that's here and everybody that's signed up is going to get a recording. So keep an eye out in your inbox. You'll have the recording. And it also gets put up on our YouTube channel, so you can find it there. And we, yeah, share this information. We care so deeply about making sure that you are getting all of the information that you need, that you're getting the right therapies for you, and that we're really spending time with you to make sure that you are getting the hyper personalized, see what I did there? Experience that you want to have. All right. So, Lynne, thank you so much for sharing your experience as an owner, as somebody that's in the studio all the time, that really understands the process, and then personally, your journey and your expertise behind the scenes. What an amazing way to start 2026. I'm so
No
grateful for you.
kidding. Well, thanks for having me. I know I was so scared when you asked me, but I was like, oh, I think I have to do this. I'm so passionate about this. I have to get in and talk.
And
So
you're
it's
a pro,
great.
you're an exceptional speaker. So we're going to have you back for more. All right, amazing. I will send you all off with my favorite phrase, which is the way that we love to send off everybody at the end of our Restore webinars. Restore, do
Do
more.
more.